Hi everyone. So, there is something that has come to my attention, right, in having discussions not only with young people, also people in their middle ages, and also people that are close to retirement, is the fact that as much as we love to talk about planning, for instance, for when something happens to us, meaning that when we pass away, what's going to happen, we tend to not really critically think about what's going to happen when people get to a certain age, and that is the age of retirement. And because of this, a lot of people tend to encounter issues as soon as they retire. For example, a lot of people are unable to afford their own lifestyle when they get to retirement for a number of issues. For instance, because of family dynamics changing, finances being stringent, and so on and so forth. So, in this discussion today, I just want to pinpoint some of the things that you just want to think about, right? Because I want you to plan also, in addition to your retirement, I want you to think critically about what's going to happen when you get to that age of retirement. So I want you to think about some of the things that could affect you, and I want you to also think about some of the things that you can put in place, so that you can have some form of plan that's going to secure you when you get to retirement. Guys, it's a pity, when people get to retirement, they're much older. Obviously, they are tired. They have been working their whole entire life. So you don't need the added stress of stringent incomes or changing family dynamics. All of a sudden things are not as you thought they would turn out to be, right? So that's what the discussion is going to be about. So just stay tuned. If you're new here, welcome. Right? My name is Yolanda Mnyengeza. I'm an attorney and a director at a law firm that is based here in Johannesburg, South Africa. So if it's your first time here, welcome again. And we hope that you're going to come back and share this information with others. So without further ado, let's move on to have this discussion. So let's talk about why some people often find themselves in this situation. For instance, now they have retired and all of a sudden things are so hard and they're so tough and they're so stressed. It's not as what they have envisioned. So I'm going to talk about a few things that I have picked up are the reason why, people get to this particular age of retirement and things, are not exactly as they envisioned. Obviously, I'm sure there's other factors, but I've seen mainly three main reasons why people find themselves in these situations. Number one, people have retirements, right? Or some form of retirement plan somewhere. And so in their minds, they're thinking whatever money that's put aside as pension or a retirement fund, it's going to be enough to care for them. But now when they get to retirement, they found out that, okay, this money is not necessarily enough to care for them on a month-to-month basis. That's when they have a hard time. For example, they'd find that it's not enough to take care of their household utilities and other responsibilities that they have. This then causes a bit of discomfort in their living because remember, they have now retired. They have sat down, which means that they can no longer work. They are expecting this amount of money to cover and help them, take care of their lifestyle. And here's the thing. When you're working and when you have retired are two different things, because the amount of money you get paid on a monthly basis is not necessarily the amount of money that you're going to get when you get your pension fund. So when you have an exorbitant amount to care for yourself during that time when you're working, you don't really, get down to the root of understanding as to how this is going to work out when you get to retirement. Now, this is the reason then people often say they can no longer afford that lifestyle. And reason number two, why people often find themselves in a situation when they are so stressed, at that age of retirement is because suddenly their family dynamics change, right? In some instances, especially when you're a grandmother, you'd find that now the grandkids, some of them come and stay with you, and maybe some people also move in, into the property, and all of a sudden the responsibilities in the household and everything starts to change. This then is an added pressure on the already stringent amount of pension fund that you have available to even care for yourself. This also is an added factor which stresses that particular person who has now retired, right? Because they already can't see how they're going to survive in that situation. This is where you see people's health deteriorating because they're old. What can they do at that age? They can't now find a side hustle. You get what I'm saying? They are at an age where they should be relaxing and sitting down and enjoying whatever it is that they have from their pension fund. But now, because family dynamics have changed, they have to now live under the particular situation, right? And another issue, which is the reason why people get here, is the lack of planning. Like I said, most of the time we're so concerned about planning about what's going to happen when we have passed away. But we're not really critically thinking to the T how we're going to operate when we get to the point of retirement. Yes, we have retirement plans, but we're not really thinking critically. What are you going to be doing? What's going to be keeping you busy? Is the amount of money you have going to be sufficient? What are you going to be using it on, right? It's going to be enough to take care of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which you're currently taking care of right now. So we don't really critically plan and think forward about these kinds of things. And then when that particular time comes, that's when we're like, this is not something I critically thought about, right? So my suggestion is, try to put up a plan for yourself. You do not want to find yourself stressed out at that particular point in your life where you can no longer work and you are tired and you have ailments. Some of you may even have chronic diseases, so you don't have, the strength to be stressing yourself trying to find something that's going to make an income, more especially if it's something that is going to require so much of your physical and mental strength. Right? So I'm going to give you a couple of pointers that you can think about so that when you go planning, you already have some idea as to what you need to start thinking about right now before you've retired. Let's go. So what do I want you to think about? Number one, I want you to think about your current situation, and I want you to compare it when you're going to get to retirement, i.e. the costs that you're paying now in terms of utilities and other things that you need in order to maintain your property. What would they prospectively be looking like at that particular time? How are you covering them right now? And how are you going to cover them when you get to that particular point in time? And also just think about prospectively, what are you going to have on hand on a month-to-month basis in order for you to take care of those particular bills? Because then if it's not going to be enough, you might want to think about a couple of options here. Either you're going to rent your property and go live somewhere else, or you're going to sell that bigger property and get something smaller that's not going to cost you a lot. And other options are there to consider. But think about this, because this then is going to help you determine whether or not you're going to be able to, in a sense, afford to continue to live where exactly you're living right now, which may be somewhere that is comfortable for you. Second thing I want you to think about is your current family dynamics and what prospectively could happen in the future. When people get to a certain age, they get a bit softer, they get a bit kinder, and then some people will take advantage. What do I mean by this? When people get to retirement, some of them, and in fact most of them, are grandmothers by then. So you'll find that the kids will try from time to time to try and change your dynamics of living. If you were not living with them when you were working, you'll find that they will try to, bring them to you so that they can stay with you, so that they can get a break, or whatever the case is. But you need to think about this. Are you going to be able to cope with that kind of situation? Is it something that you're looking forward to? Obviously, if the children that you have who's going to be bringing these kids probably will be supporting them, you'll probably be looking forward to something like that. But if not, what would happen? What's the situation going to look like, right? And what is it that you're going to need in order to ensure that you probably avoid that situation, or if that situation is something that you want, how you can be able to, cope with it. Because you don't want to find yourself in a situation that you never thought about and now you don't know how to deal with it. Like I said, when you have added children and added responsibilities, that's going to put pressure on your already stringent finances. Remember, the amount of you have right now is not as what you had when you were employed, but it's meant to assist you to continue to have an income. Let's say now you have thought about the fact that right now you're currently paying for certain things, and you will still have to pay for those certain bills when you get to the age of retirement. And you can see prospectively that you're probably not going to be able to afford these. Will you need to now have some form of income coming from somewhere? Obviously, without you having to work, because at that age, that would be so unrealistic. And plus, you will be compromising your health, so to speak. So if you think and you want to stay at that particular place that you're currently staying at, and you will not be able to afford it, is there something that you could be doing now that can be able to close that gap? For instance, that's going to be an added income that will enable you to be able to pay for all of the things you need to take care of, for instance, in that particular household that you're going to have, right? Because if you do see that there's a shortage and you'd like to get an extra income, now is the right time to have something set up so that it continues to generate an income when you are at that point of retirement, so that you don't have to find yourself in an not really ideal situation if you're planning to live on that particular property that you already have that might be a bit expensive for when you retire. And then the last thing that I really want you to think about and consider is the fact that you might actually need some help when you get to this position of retirement. See, when people retire at times, they retire and they are so tired that they can't really care for themselves properly. Sometimes when they retire, they actually have some illnesses, which means that they need help. And most of the time, you'd find that family doesn't have the time to be taking care of you 24/7. And plus, even if there was someone who would come forward in the family to say, I'm going to help take care of you, sometimes you will have to compensate those people. If such a situation were to occur, what would you do? For instance, right now you would know that, okay, I've got this amount of money in terms of pension. Can there be some wiggle room for you to be able to pay someone to care for you during that time? Because obviously, as much as this is not something that you're thinking about, it does often happen, right? Because of the way in which people have been working, and also because of age at times, right? That you will find that you have so many ailments and you're extremely tired and exhausted that you cannot really take care of yourself 24/7. Can you think about a plan for when this happens? Even if you don't have to do anything right now, but when it happens, at least you will have at the back of your mind that, okay, this is the contingency plan when I'm in the situation. I'll make you an example. Some of the things that people have done is that they've said when they get to that situation, they'd rather go to, some form of hospice where they're going to stay and, just pay for that particular care in that particular environment. And then what they would often do is have their property rented out to help them to be able to pay for the fees of that particular hospice or care facility they reside in. That way, they have a bit of a peace of mind, because they have people taking care of them, and number two, they've got a roof over their head, right? And they've got enough money to cater for all those things that are necessary for them to continue to live there. So those are just some of the things that I want you to incorporate in your thinking, right? Which I've started talking to my clients about, that this is something that we need to start thinking about now, because it's not right that we are always focused and thinking only about when something happens to us and we're not there. But when we're here, we're not thinking about our well-being and what we could do to make it a bit better. More especially when we get to retirement, because at that stage, we're so tired. We have been working, it's been a lot. So we need some resting time. So we don't need to be worried about issues, you know, and finances. Whereas that's something we cannot do anything about most of the time when we are at that age. Guys, this brings us to the end of our discussion today. I really hope that it has, you know, sparked some thought into you, more especially thoughts about what we could do if things turn left, or if we can no longer afford, you know, the kind of lives that we have when we get to retirement, so that at least we have a bit of comfort when we get to such positions. All right, so I will see you next time. And again, I always say, share this video if you found it useful, if you think it can be helpful to another person.